Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about, this is an ongoing research and on dynamic of internal mobility of nurses in the Gambia. I'm going to talk about the prerequisite for international migration. But before arriving it, I'm just going to present the focus of this research. I'm going to remind the research of the research context where this case study is involved, and the methodological approach I use, and I select some relevant findings that I would like to discuss here, as the time is short. Yeah. First of all, this is a postdoctoral research I did in International Migration Institute for 1.5 years. Look, it's about the trajectories of African nurses in the UK as an institutional system characterizing by policies where the nurses have to integrate. And what I'm going to present here is just the case of the Gambia, which is almost finished. And so I will leave the Ghanaian case. Just to have some ideas on the Gambia. Gambia is a West African country, a very small country, as you can see, in terms of population, almost 2 million, according to the World Bank data. I select also some health indicators to relate to this presentation to show the health workers' density, the low one, compared to the other country. The maternal mortality is also higher, 316. And in the Gambia, we have also the high rate of fertility. And what we can see is the contrast between the urban areas and the rural areas. And this high rate fertility, according to me, I think we can expect to have more than all this increase of the high rate. Why? Because the recent studies from World Bank show that 40% of Gambian women are hostile to use the contraception. Another important data in the case of Gambia is that despite all, we have a decrease on infant mortality. That is a good thing. We also have a good improvement of maternal mortality according to the Health Millennium Goals. But the Gambia still faces the high rate of new births, as this picture can show. And also, I think the other challenge is to educate all these children. We can also see. Now I'm going to focus on the purpose of this presentation is the Gambian nurse and their own mobilities. It's not a Gambian, they are not Gambian nurses, they are Nigerian nurses. But are they all black? That's fine. If I don't say, you don't know. Okay. And this is an inductive research based on inductive approach. I just quickly said that probably you face an overdose of chart and statistic data, so prepare yourself to be relaxed and just read what you can have here. And based on this study is based on 2 observations. First observation comes from the statistic that I'm going to show later, and the other observation came from the field research. What we observed? We observed the high rate of international mobility according to the database and the analysis of Clements and Patterson. And this high rate of mobility, that is not the aim of this presentation, is justified here by classical factors describing in migration studies. economic factors, family factors, network, and historical link, and all of this. So in this point, we found the same classical factors we can find if we did, or if you do this research in the other context, African context. The other observation coming from the field research is the intense internal mobility between sectors, between school of nurses, I'm going to showing the location of school of nurses, between rural and urban areas, but also between health structures or within health structures. If I show the rate of percentage of Gambian doctors who are supposed to be training in Gambia and are working in the OCDE country, we can just note, I don't know how we use it, we can just note here this high rate of 53% of doctors abroad. And it is the same thing if you observe the rate, the percentage of nurses. This is the first observation I mentioned before. And based on this statistic observation and based on the observation of this internal mobility, we have these three research question. What such internal mobility within the Gambian health system? And what are the dynamic of this internal mobility? And the final question is, how can we interpret this dynamic? And what we use, I told it before, is the inductive approach, and we did semi-structured interviews, and then in a second step, in deep interview to know the trajectories of some nurses. And what we target is just nurse and nurse lecturer. And if you consider the repetition of gender repetition, we can note that we will find more men here in nurse. They are all nurse lecturers are all men. And in the other category, like here we have registering nurses, we have enrolling nurses, and we have the community health nurses. And I'm going to present the first result of now this Gambian study case. What we can see is all these we have nurse and nurse lecturer between 25 and 50 years old. They are all working in the state service, private service, or semi-private service. They are all have experience of internal mobility, I mean between rural and urban areas, between state and private sector, or vice versa. And most of the senior, we have 10 of them, did internal mobility. The UK, they were in the UK, the USA, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Taiwan, Ghana. And we have different countries where they work. Probably sometimes it's 1 year or 1.5 or 2 years or 3 years in a case of Saudi Arabia. They also have several years of practice and used to do the medical doctor job. Like in the rural areas, some nurse, when they don't have doctor to intervene, they told me that they just take their courage and do this work because they just try to save life by doing the medical job. Now, the second important finding is in the nursing training structure that can explain this internal mobility. First of all, we have these three categories of specialization. First is community health nurses. This is a lower one. We have enrolled nurses. This is another specialization. But this is the specialization, registering nursing gives the possibility to go abroad. If the community health nurses or enrolled nurses would like to migrate in a future or have the the project of migrating, they have to move from this training to this and finally arrive here to be ready, if ever, they said. But to be community health nurse, you need 2 years of experience with at least 2 years of experience. It's the same thing for enrolled nurse and for registering nurse who want to progress to bachelor, master. At this level, they have to go abroad to do the PhD in nursing studies. What I would like to emphasizing here is the years of experience, of training and the years of experience. And what's happened sometimes, the community health nurse can just stay community health nurse a long period just to gain his life or her life and stay during maybe 10 years before deciding to move from this step to this step, unless the person has the project to travel, and so quickly they have to attend this training. So the period, it's what I said before, the period of gaining professional experience could be extended because of personal need, and nurse can stop their career by getting only one specialization. And the location of the School of Nurse also justify or explain this mobility profile that we can find in Gambian nursing. First of all, we have the school registering nursing has to be training here in Banjul, the capital, and we have the attending nursing are training here in Masakonkong, and the last category enrolled are here somewhere in Bassam. It means that if I am first here attending nursing, after my training or during my training, I have to walk around these areas in these maybe health centers to take some responsibilities. Or if I'm enrolling nurses, I just need to walk around this. At the end, the registering nurses, for instance, arrive to get experiences all through the country. And when I talked to them, they just told me, I know what's happened here. I know maybe almost the case of disease we have around here because I did my training in these 3 schools of nursing. This is what explains, based on the structure of the training, the profile of mobility of this nursing. Now, the internal mobility can be also due to one thing, what I call strategical choice. This strategical choice is also the prerequisite. What does mean prerequisite? Prerequisite nurse according to Gambian nurse, they can develop and acquire social and professional expertise by moving between sectors. It means also the preference of gaining experience in different nurse specialization to increase chance of better facing international challenge. And for them, international challenge is not only the UK, the northern country, but it also means the other country, Kenya, Nigeria maybe. It's international migration for them. And leaving aside the nurses who have more than 25 years of nursing experience, younger nurses show willingness to migrate if they had the prerequisite. And what they did, there is this strong desire to achieve their professional goal, and they are really motivated to do it. As they said me, it's I'm preparing to go. I choose to work in the rural areas because there I will face several cases. So I will move to the private sector because it's a relaxing context. It just looks like I'm already abroad because I can work during the morning and I'm relaxing during the afternoon because there is no passion or less passion. how do nurses, what I just explained before, how do young nurses prepare themselves? They walk by, they move from sector, they face difficulties, and when they explain me how to face difficulties, it's just like it shows a determination to do so. Like I'm facing difficulties if I leave the capital and then go far from there, facing all of this. When I arrive in the UK, I'm sure that I will not, it's not like working all the day that will impression me, because I used to do it. It's a kind of answer we have. Increasing their profile also, they know it because according to the information they receive, they told him that if you are a nurse at the same time the midwife, you are sure that they will prefer you to the other one who present just one profile. This is what the scheme of internal mobility I present before. And now, meeting prerequisites does not mean international migration, because you have another constraint we have to take in account. The first one is the personal life stories of nursing. I cannot just give a typology of this personal life story because it's very personal, and every nurse has his specific story to explain. The social and professional background also, the duration of international, and mostly the financial issues. Some nurse told me we have all, in terms of prerequisites, we have it, but the only prerequisite we don't have is money. We don't have money to go, and we don't have money maybe to try to apply for the USA, for the UK at the same time, for the Saudi Arabian, because it costs. The prerequisite, the question of prerequisite, I'm going to conclude by this, raise some question. And this question is the next step of this study, is to what extent the prerequisite can be linked with the higher rate of mobility. I mean, how overqualification of nurses can engender frustration which may encourage international migration. Why I ask this question? Because when I ask them about their life, about their internal mobility, international mobility, their expectation, they just said, okay, I'm frustrated because I'm ready. I have all the qualification you can imagine. I did all the mobility, internal mobility you can imagine, and I continue to receive the same salary. It's just amazing. And all of them, in this 25 interview, most of 20% talk about this. I have I feel all the prerequisites. I'm qualified. Someone told me that, okay, if I were in the UK, I will receive a salary more than this, and it's just turned about, I'm overqualified, now I need to move to the other country. You will see that I will not propose a conclusion. Why? Because as it's ongoing research, I prefer just finishing with this question that can help also to launch the discussion. Thank you for your attention.